Hello, Professor. Our team will be presenting on the case study Ashmark Corporation dealing with the supply disruption. So to begin with, let me introduce our team. My name is Emma. We have Gayan, Leoma, Sanjana, and Mithila. So our agenda is the introduction, problem analysis, recommendation, conclusion, and the references. So to begin with, the case study is woven around the challenges faced by Scott Tilden, the supply chain manager at a division of Ashmark Corporation. Ashmark Corporation is an automotive supplier and has built its reputation for high quality and high technology solutions, and the company makes more than $1 billion in revenue each year. So moreover, Red Star has been providing quality products at competitive prices to Ashmark for decades. Ashmark has been solely dependent on Red Star for a long period of time. The case study highlights the issues that is faced by Ashmark due to the bankruptcy of Red Star. The case study also highlights the lack of a contingency plan within the management of Ashmark and emphasizes that the employees were too stressed out by the bankruptcy that made them to make decisions that is focused on the short run. So although Ashmark supported Red Star financially by lending out money each week and non-financially by sending retired maintenance technicians, the company led to bankruptcy, and this affected Ashmark tremendously. So in this presentation, we'll be highlighting the relationship between the two companies, the causes that led to this situation, and finally, a suggestion of what could have been done differently. I'll be handing over the next slide to Leoma.
Thank you, Emma. Now let's talk about the main issues between the Red Star and Ashmark related to the current supply disruption that negatively affected their reputation over the years. First issue emerged when the Ashmark decided to discontinue in-house finish machining. This decision was made because Ashmark wished to focus on higher value-added machining, design and assembly while leaving less important and lower value-added machines to Tier 2, which is Red Star. This choice had many consequences for Red Star, which was left with a higher mix of lower volume products as a result. Furthermore, the fact that Ashmark sought new suppliers for lower volume parts that could not be reproduced increased competition and lowered Red Star's prices. The second issue was that the former supply chain manager of Ashmark had negotiated a $400,000 price reduction with Red Star 2 years before the bankruptcy. This new deal had put Red Star under extra financial pressure since they couldn't resist the price cut because Ashmark represented 90% of their business and couldn't afford to lose them. The third problem is the poor decisions made by Luden, the president of Red Star. Throughout the 18 months preceding the bankruptcy, Red Star did not have an accountant. Luden had been collecting outstanding invoices without paying them for a long period of time and encountered a difficult situation. Finally, all the funds came from Ashmark seized by creditors since Red Star didn't declare bankruptcy under Chapter 11. If they did so, the money could have been saved since under US Bankruptcy Code, Chapter 11 bankruptcy is a court-approved reorganization often used by firms to keep their business operating, where it allows companies to obtain new financing and not allow existing creditors to seize funds before the filing. So with that, I would like to invite Mithila to continue with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Leoma. I'm Mithila here, and I'm going to talk about the role of the OEMs in this situation. The original equipment manufacturers were exceptionally concerned about the Ashmark's supply issue, which had been affected severely due to the insolvency of Red Star. The main idea was to express their fears about Ashmark's supply disruption. OEMs has the right to pressure Ashmark because they were among the top sellers who delivered final products to the clients. Furthermore, OEMs heavily relied on Ashmark for technical competencies, production capabilities, and managing the Tier 1 and Tier 2 supply base. Therefore, they wanted to mainly communicate their concerns about the existing situation and force Ashmark to take action to improve the supply chain issues. The problem might have taken a long time to resolve if they had not pressured Ashmark. Now over to you, Gayan.
Thank you, Mithila. So, if we talk about some of the key action taken by Ashmark immediately after the bankruptcy, the first one is Ashmark workers at Red Star organize, recorded, and label all toolings and prepare for immediate transportation if necessary. So, this helped plan for future transaction and sales and gave the rest of the corporation time to catch up on engine building. Ashmark ensures certain that their tooling was catalogued and stored in a separate location to avoid ownership dispute. Secondly, they source a new supplier. So following that, they established a new supply and sent trucks from Red Star to the new plant. So this ended up easing OEM's concerns because it's demonstrated that there was a good plan in place and that there would not be a significant decline in production. Thirdly, that they duplicated the highest volume tooling for production at another source to speed up the process and increase the safety quantity of inventory of the components. Moving on to the next slide. Here we will discuss recommendation on what need to be done next by Ashma. First, they have to identify backup supply in diversity in their supply base. So Ashmark must ensure that they have enough suppliers to avoid situation like this. Indeed, having Red Star as a sole supply of components for 75% of their product was extremely dangerous. Having backup supply and various supply bases key to preparing for supply chain interruption. Secondly, auditing your supply chain vulnerability. The first thing to evaluate is the importance of each link in your supply chain. It will allow firms to concentrate on areas where they need to identify alternatives. It can also assist them in examining potential environmental, social, and political variables that may impact their supply chain channels. In this case, Ashmark relies on single supply for key components of its operation. If you do not have any backups, that point in your supply chain, it's potentially vulnerable. The third one is to build up your inventory. Another practice is that Ashma can implement is that having additional goods on hand, whether the finished goods, parts, or components will help them to overcome potential supply chain disruption. They can utilize effective forecasting techniques to calculate safety stocks based on their historical sales data and demand pattern. Lastly, they can create a supply chain emergency plan. We couldn't see any emergency plan they have implemented. It's always good to have a backup plan, especially regarding supplies. When creating an emergency plan, you should think about all the different ways you can move goods around. Consider setting aside an emergency budget that they can be used in case of disruption. Over to you, Sanjana, to conclude the presentation.
Thank you, Gayan. Let's move on to the conclusion part. Ashmark was a tier 1 firm that delivered automobile engine components to the market, whereas Red Star was a tier 2 company that was Ashmark's supplier. However, Red Star encountered difficult circumstances and went bankrupt, putting Ashmark under duress because it relied entirely on its single source of 4 engine components. The customer of Ashmark, who was previously an equipment maker, grew worried about Ashmark's performance, which was now facing a challenging situation. However, the corporation has implemented several steps and tactics to maintain its position. Furthermore, the organization was guided on how to deal with the current situation. Regarding Ashmark, the one critical supply chain risk the firm faces is remaining adaptable in the face of challenging worldwide emission and safety rules. The corporation must maintain a particular degree of knowledge in technical and production skill. Aside from that, the firm needed to synchronize its tier 2 suppliers' efforts and production techniques to verify that the delivered components met the specification as well as the requirements of the OEM client. Besides, Ashmark needed to guarantee that in addition to satisfying specific cost-related criteria, the business ensured the timely delivery of components to the OEM maker. Various demand and supply-related variables must also be considered to ensure that the proper components are delivered at right time as well. Thank you everyone for all your ears. These are the references we used in this presentation. Have a good day to all.